Okay, hello everyone. So I just want to quickly check to make sure that I'm live and the software is working. And then we'll get started. Okay, we're good. Right, so I wanted to change the lesson a little bit this week. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to write the essay, but I'm going to use your ideas. So last week, what I did was I had you writing answers, sending it to me, taking quite a bit of time because obviously, that's a lot of work on your end. So I'm going to just do it a bit differently in that you're going to tell me what to say. I'll give you feedback on your ideas. I'll tell you, what things would work and what wouldn't work, and the reasons why and how you can improve. But essentially, I will do the writing. So to get started, we're just going to get going. I'm going to write the paraphrase. I'll just talk to you about how to do this. And then I'm going to get you to look at the question and give me what main ideas you think we could use. So let's start off. So this is the question we're looking at. Now we have, and when you're paraphrasing, because where a lot of students get bogged down, where they get find it difficult, is they'll try to paraphrase the word some. Then after that, they'll try to paraphrase, the word university, then move on to the word students. But that's really difficult. And it's not going to make sense if you break it down into just one word at a time. So what we want to do is we just want to take this whole chunk here. Some university students live with their families while studying. Okay, so some students stay at their family homes. So I have some, I haven't said university yet. While studying. So some students stay at their family homes while attending university. Okay. So now I've done this whole bit, and that's all you want to do. And obviously, this language is very simple. I'm quite confident that you will all know this. You could have even just said studying instead of attending. And that's all you need to do. Oh, actually, studying was here, so I'll change it back. Now, but others prefer to move away from home. Okay, while other students like to move out. So by taking the full chunk there, paraphrasing that, and then taking the full chunk there and paraphrasing that, you're making life a lot easier for yourself because you're not just doing, some. How do I say that? Students. How do I say that? And that it's much easier. And if you've completed my lessons, I'm sure you'll have noticed that I'm constantly repeating the number one priority when you paraphrase the question is that it has the exact same meaning. If you use a word from the question in your paraphrase, that's fine. Use as many different words as you can, but don't get really stressed or caught up in all of that. Hi Noni, thanks for joining. Good to see you here. Okay, so that's the first sentence of every task 2 essay. We just repeat what the question says. Now the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to give you a few minutes to just write. Hey Sandy. Hi Timur, you made it this week. Good, thanks for joining. Okay, so what you're going to do is just tell me what main ideas do you think we could use for this question. You don't have to write out, big long explanations, just the short, simple main ideas, but make sure that they're both relevant and make sure that they're specific. So here's your instruction. What main ideas can we use? And again, there's the question. So I'm just going to give you 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and as and when you're ready, please go ahead and post your ideas in the comments. Hi Vimal. Hi Sharon. Okay, if you're not finished yet, please continue thinking of your ideas and post them in the comments when you're ready. So Noni, we're just looking for the main ideas at the moment. So I will actually write the introduction for you. So just what main ideas would you use? Okay, so we have our first set here. So Tamur says, living away from home for studies teaches us how to face different challenges. Okay, now this is relevant, but it is too vague and it's not a suitable main idea. So what you would need to do, and I can tell you, Tamur, you very nearly have an idea that you can use, but what you're missing is specific ideas. So you're saying there are lots of different challenges. That's true. So please go back, think about it for another minute, and tell me what challenges do you mean? So specifically, what challenges? If you just say challenges, I still don't know what you're going to say. So tell me what challenges, and then you will have specific ideas. More, while other students opt for studying outside from home. Yeah, opt to would be correct. Carmina, thank you for joining. Learning to be independent is an advantage. Good. Yep, that's perfect. Thanks, Carmina. Talmor, such as how to live in a new environment. So the challenge of learning how to live in a new environment. So is that an advantage or a disadvantage? So I would say putting yourself in a challenging environment is good because you will learn new skills. Or are you saying we should avoid challenges and it's a disadvantage to be in a challenging situation? So just think a bit more deeply on that one, Timur. Is this an advantage or a disadvantage, and why? Why is that a good thing or a bad thing? So obviously, if you're going to live outside your family home, that will be a new environment. That's kind of a description of what the question is saying. But learning how to live in a new environment, what what would be an advantage or what would be a disadvantage about that? Hi, Arben. Good to see you again. Advantage, don't need to work while studying. So, 1 second now. So the question is, do the benefits of moving out to attend university outweigh the disadvantages. So the advantage of moving out is you don't need to work while studying. So I see. So these are advantages of staying at home. So you just need to make sure that you're focused on the side that the question has said. So the question says, do the benefits of moving out attend university? Of moving out to attend university outweigh the disadvantages. So the advantage of staying at home would be you don't need to work while studying, and you have the emotional support. So those would actually be disadvantages because we're talking about the other side. But your ideas are relevant and specific, so that's good. So don't need to work. And I presume you mean don't need to earn money. And you have no emotional support from your loved ones. Good. Good. Sandeep. Oh, hi, Sandeep. Oh, excuse me. Students can be independent, can ameliorate. I've never heard that word before. And this is a good point to make, where IELTS doesn't want you to use words that nobody has ever heard of. IELTS doesn't want you to use very, very rare, low frequency words that people don't use. IELTS wants you to use words that are actually used by native English speakers. So I'm sure this is a real word. I'm sure you found it in a thesaurus or a dictionary. But the fact is, English is the only language I speak, and I've never heard this word before. That doesn't mean no English speaker would have heard it, but you don't want to use language that's so rare like this. Just the general English language that we use from day to day is perfect. So back to your ideas. Students can learn to be independent. Perfect. The other one, I have to get a dictionary. I'm just going to say for now, this is a point to make on vocabulary is don't learn words that are never used. And you'll see in my lesson on how to improve vocabulary, one of the things that I say is when you're trying to decide which words to learn. So you're reading a text, you're saying, which ones, there are a lot of words here that I don't know, which ones should I learn? You should learn the ones that look familiar. So you don't know what it means, but you've seen it a few times before, that you recognize it. So I'm quite confident you'll never see this word again. So that would mean the first time you see a word doesn't mean you should learn it. It's when it becomes familiar, you've seen it, you feel like you should already know it. Those are the words that you should be learning. Thanks for your comment as well. Noni, advantage, make them learn how to be more responsible. Good. Learn to be independent, learn to be responsible. Perfect. Sandy, a benefit of moving out would be independent life without family members. So that's to become more independent. Good. And Sandy again, a disadvantage would be financial difficulty. Yeah, financial issues. Good. And Timur, no distractions from studies when you are with your family, so when you're at home or when you move out. Presumably when you stay at home, so fewer distractions. Okay, this is great. Lots of good ideas coming in here. Vimal, the advantage of studying away from home will provide great independence, good, and flexibility into the new learning environment. Independence, good, because that's a very specific thing, but flexibility is a very vague term. I don't know what flexibility there will be. So you probably have an idea in mind, but using the word flexible doesn't describe that very well. So at the moment, that's too vague. Your idea needs to be more specific. So just think about it, come back again, tell me what specific thing will be more flexible? Will it be the person? Will it be like, but more specifically, the word flexible isn't going to communicate a specific idea. So you'll need either to narrow down the focus, or you'll need another word to explain that. Hi, Ala. Good to see you again. Hopefully, I'll see you in the feedback lessons during the week as well. Naranjan, hello. Arbin, save time. I'm going to say that is staying at home because you get your family to support you and help you with stuff. Maybe you don't have to cook or clean or stuff, something like that. So I'm going to imagine you're saying it saves time to stay at home, I'm presuming. Niranjan, to get to know about the other part of the house. I'm sorry, but I'm lost on this. I don't fully understand that. I don't know what you mean by the other part of the house. I know you corrected the word house, but I'm not sure what that means. So I think this happens quite a bit as well, as like when what you have to remember is if I had the background, if we were already talking and I already knew what you were thinking about, that would be enough information for me. But you have to take it from the point, not just with me, but in the IELTS test, you have to consider, I don't know what you were thinking about previously, or, where you're coming from. So you have to just take it from the very beginning with me and the examiner in your task 2 essay, and your speaking for that matter, and just say the full thing that you want to say. More responsible. Yep, good. Thank you. And we had that idea already. Good. Ala, you'll be more independent. Good. When you learn how to live alone and arrange everything to study alone, it will also be a nice chance to meet new people and new places. So new places, I would say yes. Get to know new places. Good. I would say with new people, now you might be able to explain that in a way where it is perfect, but my response would be, if I stay at home and I go to university, in my hometown, I will also get to know new people in that university. I won't know everybody in that university. So for that reason, I would say this idea isn't really a contrast between the people who stayed at home and the people who moved out. Whereas when you talk about seeing new places, that totally makes sense. I'm going to another place. I will, get to experience that. But with new people, I would say probably not suitable. But it could happen, that you explain it in a way that it is suitable. But right now, when I look at it, I feel that it is not. Vimal, flexibility in terms of collaborations with other students. And that would go back to what I just said with Ala, is will the person who lives with their parents not collaborate with other students? So you have to think, what are the two sides? The first side is someone who lives at home, someone who doesn't live at home. They're both going to university. They're going to study in the same environment. So, for example, in the same university, there will be people who live with their families. There will be people who moved out. So you're trying to consider experiences that one of those groups of students will have that the other one won't have. So how will their experiences be different? And for this idea here, the collaborations with other students, I would say that they will all have that same experience. So not relevant would be the problem with this one. Help to increase social skills. I'd need more information. It doesn't jump out at me as being, yeah, definitely, why would they have more social skills? So if I stay at home, but you move out of home and we both go to the same university together. So we could be friends at university, but you live in a dorm or you live in a rented house and I live with my parents. How will you have better social skills from that situation? So that's what you have to consider there. This is really good. Lots of great ideas. And thanks for sharing. Ala, yes, that's what I meant, to know your country if you're abroad. Now that's a really good point. So let's have a closer look at the question. Now, definitely some people move abroad to study. That does happen. I have plenty of friends who've done that. I have plenty of students who are doing that. I have plenty of IELTS students who are doing IELTS for that reason. But this question didn't say others prefer to move abroad. It said move away from home. So by talking about students moving abroad, you've actually changed what the question asked you to talk about. And that's going to have a big impact on your task achievement score. Because if you're talking about something different, you're not answering the question. Your task achievement score could be band 4 or lower. If you start talking about the difference between students who move abroad and students who stay in their own country, that's very, very different. So what the IELTS, what the question wants from you is compare the people who live with their parents from the people who don't live with their parents. How are their experiences different? Not people who stayed in their country with people who moved out of their country. That would be a completely different question. So definitely question analysis would be very, very important to overcome this problem. And just, really referring back to the question, when you wrote that main idea, did you think about, does this actually respond to the question? And just keep that in mind. But definitely a very valuable lesson to learn from this mistake, because what that means is you know how important question analysis is for you. You need to spend more time and give more attention to question analysis to make sure that this issue does not repeat itself. Hi, Shira. Good to see you here. And Niranjan, more freedom to make decisions. So we have some grammars, we have some vocab mistakes, spelling mistakes. Freedom is one word. We don't take a decision, we make a decision. But your main idea is actually relevant and specific. So for your task achievement, this is perfect. For your grammar and vocab score, there are issues here. So freedom to make decisions. We have plenty of ideas here. So at the moment we have five disadvantages and 5 advantages. They're all relevant, they're all specific. So this is great. So I'll just look at the next 2 comments and then we'll move to the next part of the lesson. Okay. So if you stay with family, they always control you and put a lot of pressure on your education. Good. So this is the freedom to make. So this is an explanation of your previous idea. Yep. The preference of students, Vimal, the preference of students studying away from home will provide complete focus on studies. I think your idea is relevant and specific. I, however, would disagree. I would say that students who are staying at home would be more focused on their studies. That doesn't matter. If you can explain why students who move out of home have more focus on their studies, that's perfect. If your explanation, if you can say this is why they have more focus, that's perfect. I personally disagree, but you don't need me to do it. You don't need me to agree. You just need to explain it to me. So it's not that the examiner has to agree with your main idea. The examiner just has to understand what you're talking about, and you have to develop it to explain why you think that, and that's perfect. So the fact that I don't agree with this does not matter. This is relevant and this is specific. Niranjan, my keyboard is in Portuguese. Well, that's no problem because that means you don't have any vocab or grammar to work on. Okay, so I'm going to write out the outline statement. So let me just, actually, before I move on, please tell me, how many main ideas do we need for this question? I know Sandy's going to get this one anyway. How many main ideas do we need for this question? Okay, so I'm going to pick up on Sandy. Sandy and I have been working together for quite a while on the live feedback lessons. So I was very confident Sandy had this. Correct. 3 is correct. So if the question were to say, if the question said, what are the advantages and disadvantages, we would need 4. But the question didn't say that. It said, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, which means we need 3. So I'll show you why in a minute. But what it does indicate is that there are quite a few of you who need to brush up on how to answer these question types. And this is the same link that I posted to you last week, but let me just post this here again. That's basically all my lessons for task 2, and it's condensed into just 3 hours. So basically the answer to that and every other question you might have about IELTS task 2 will be in there. So definitely use those 3 hours of your time. It'll be a great benefit. So I've just shared that. Right. Benefits means plural. Yes, Arben, that's correct. I'll show you exactly why now. Okay. So this is the paraphrase that we already wrote, and we're going to say, now I'm going to choose let me share my screen with you here. Okay. So this is the paraphrase that we already wrote. We're going to say, okay, I'm going to say that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages because I just like 2 of the ideas here. So we're going to go with this. Do the benefits of moving out to attend university outweigh the disadvantages? The disadvantages of living away from home. No, I've gone the wrong way around, sorry. The advantages of living away from home do not outweigh the disadvantages because the main disadvantages are the financial burden and the lack of emotional support, while the only advantage is the freedom to make your own decisions. Okay, so that there is our introduction. And as you can see, the way that it's been phrased means that we only need 3 main ideas. So we're going to say, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And whichever side you say is more significant, you will have 2 ideas, and the opposite side, you'll just have 1. So Arben is a bit confused by this, and it is covered in the lesson, Arben, but let me just show you. Now, if this here was the question, you would need 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages. But that is not what the question said. And the real giveaway for you is when it says outweigh. That's how you know. Okay, so the next paragraph, we're going to take the paragraphs in the same order. So I will always say the advantage, da 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 da. Okay, so financial burden. So that was my first main idea. Lack of emotional support. That was my second idea. And freedom to make your own decisions. That was the third main idea. Okay, so we're going to discuss the first one first. So we're going to say something like this. One of the primary disadvantages of living away from home is the financial strain that comes with that decision. Okay. So that is the first sentence of our first body paragraph. And what I need you to do, so again, I am going, excuse me, gather myself. I am going to write the essay for you. You are going to tell me what to say. So what we need to look at next is how are we going to develop this idea? Now, I know there were lots of good ideas. So the advantages, we had independent, you become more responsible, see new places, freedom to make decisions. The disadvantages, you don't need to work, you need to work, you have no emotional support, the financial issues, more distractions, and you save time, or you lose time. So all those were fine, but I don't want you to worry about whose idea it was. Was it your idea? Was it not? That doesn't matter. We're just all going to focus on the same one main idea, which is what we have here. One of the primary disadvantages of living away from home is the financial strain that comes with that decision. Now tell me, how can we develop this idea? So what explanations would you consider? What examples would you use to develop this idea in the main body paragraph? Okay, so again, take 2-3 minutes, think of your ideas. Whenever you're ready, post them in the comments. And again, I'll give you all the feedback on the rest of, I'll give you all the feedback on your ideas. Ala, so will we use all the points? No, you will only, if you had that many main ideas, that would be great, but you still just choose 3. If you have more ideas, does not mean you should include them in the answer. You won't have enough development for a high score with many, many ideas. All you want, 3 ideas that are specific and relevant, and that's it. You're done. Ala, when the question says outweigh, it wants you to say which are more significant. So do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages means, do you think that the advantages are more significant or the disadvantages are more significant? Okay, so we have some ideas coming through. Again, if you're not finished, that's fine. You can just focus on developing that idea. I'm just going to put this at the top so that you can see it while I'm giving feedback to the other students. Niranjan, staying away from home will increase the decision-making power for students than people who always depend on their parents to decide for them. This increase their decision-making power is essentially, oh, sorry. You're still on the previous. Okay, so what I wanted you to do is just focus on this one here, financial strain. So explain that. One of the main disadvantages of living away from home is the financial strain that comes with that decision. So how could you explain that? So I'm just going to keep us focused on this one main idea because I want everybody kind of pointing in the same direction. That will help the lesson to flow better. So that idea makes sense. That's good. But we'll just focus on this here for now. Okay, Noni. Because when students live independently, they need to pay for rent and worry about other financial services that come with it, like water and electricity bills. Good. One thing though, you don't want to get into a situation where you're just listing every single, financial, every single thing that they have to pay for. So I would say even like water, are they going to spend that much on water? They're probably going to be, I'd say water probably isn't going to be a big expense. So even just saying rent, that's probably the biggest one. Electricity bill is fine. So let's just say take two. You don't want a big list because what you're doing is you're not really developing the idea further with more examples. And also you're not really showing what grammar you're capable of, because with a list it's just you're naming one thing after another, not so much the way you've written it. But I would avoid like two is fine. You just want to give an idea. So I would rephrase this: because when students live independently, they need to pay for the extra expenses such as rent and electricity bills. That would be enough. So yeah, the development is good. And the main thing is your development is focused on the main idea and it's in the context of the question. Now, a bit short, but you know that already. The development is fine. That's good. Thank you, Noni. Vimal, disadvantages is students will have financial constraints to meet their end needs. This is essentially you're saying the same thing as the topic sentence. This happens to a lot of students, a lot of IELTS candidates. I see this all the time. When they try to explain it, they repeat the idea in different words. But essentially, if we use the same words, you've just said the same thing. So when they move away from home, they have to pay more money they have more expenses, and they have more expenses. But you don't want to just repeat the idea in other words. You want to explain why do they have more expenses. When we're comparing, you have moved away from home, I have stayed at home, why do you have more expenses than me? That's what you want to explain. So you need to, when you're in your body paragraph, you need to dig deeper into that and explain. Even though it's very obvious why those people have more expenses, what IELTS wants you to do is to explain that. That's really important. Niranjan, eventually, in certain circumstances, we might need experienced advice from parents. Yes, but you're still on the last part of the lesson. So I just want you to focus on this one idea about financial strain for now. But yes, this is emotional support or it makes sense. It's in the context of the question, but it would not be for the paragraph that we're looking at. Rent and food. Yep, definitely. So I would say in the context of what Noni said, and then you could just have those as the two items that you would mention. Students have to pay monthly rent and bills. Perfect. Obviously, as well, when people are like, if I live with my parents, would be, there's still, if we live in a rented house, maybe we own our own house, we will still have bills, but it's that it's one bill rather than two bills. So it could be, I'm working and paying for my own rent and my own bills. It could be my parents, my family are supporting me. So you have to make it very clear. We need to keep in mind the distinction is someone who doesn't live at home and someone who does live at home. So yeah, definitely rent and bills make sense as well, but just make sure you keep it in the context. Okay, thanks, Ranjan. Perez, thanks for joining us. In expansion of the point, we can talk. Not sure what happened there. Internet problem, I think. So with accommodation, yes. Feeding, yes. I think people who live at home will also have to eat. That's pretty obvious. But it's going to be, it's cooking for 3 people is not 3 times more expensive than cooking for 1 person. So that's the approach you want to take. With purchasing books and handouts, again, so this is back to, are we talking about what the question asked? Let me just jump up to the question here again. So we're talking about university students and university students. So it's university students who live with their families and university students who live away from home. So with that in mind, when you're talking about books and handouts, that's not really, the two sides of the question. You're talking about something that both groups of people, both groups of students would have to purchase. So that would not be relevant. And that's really important to learn from that. Not just you, but everybody watching this lesson, is that because what happens is students, they're very focused on the question when they're thinking of the main ideas. And then when they're developing the main ideas, they forget about the context of the question, and they just talk about what are the expenses of studying in university or moving away and studying in university. But what you have to remember is the context of the question doesn't allow you to just discuss expenses of a person who moved away from home to study in university. It's the expenses that person has that the other person doesn't have. So it's very important that you keep that in mind. And thanks for sharing as well. Arben, okay. On the one hand, the main disadvantages of moving away from your family is increase in financial strain. That is to say, when you live away from home, you will need different kinds of facilities like accommodation and food, which results in students having to suffer from financial issues. For example, students in my country have to work while studying as they don't have the financial expenses to meet. Good. I assume that the rest of your comment is on. This is good, but what I would say is just make sure that it's not, in your example, it can't just be people who move away from home are working. Are the people who are living at home, are they also working? So make sure that's in your example, is the people who move away from home are working, the ones who stay at home are not working. And you need to make that distinction, or else it's not worth saying. If they're all working, then it doesn't make any difference. So it has to be one group are, the other group are not, or a higher percentage of one group are than the other group, like that. Okay, Niranjan, parents are fully responsible for the house expenses and students are not necessary to worry about their financial burden and can concentrate on their education. So yes, so this is, you're talking about people who are living at home. You would need to have that in contrast with the ones who are not. So make sure that you're talking about, whereas you would need to finish this, whereas the people who do move away from home have the opposite environment, the opposite situation. So that would be important. You can't just say, it has to be the contrast of what one group has that the other group doesn't have. But yeah, that would make sense. You could definitely say that. I would say you'll definitely need to work on your vocabulary, Niranjan. I can understand what you're saying. You can communicate, but for the IELTS test, you'll need a higher level of accuracy. So definitely spend some time on improving your vocabulary and start now. That will really stand to you when you're doing your IELTS test. And Sandy, I would just say, again, make sure that there's a definite contrast between the group of students who are living at home and the group of students who are not living at home. So I would say, like, in a lot of situations, there would be the students who move out of home are also being supported by their parents. So it could be, my parents will buy my food. So apologies, internet down again. So it's the fact that there's more money being spent. So it doesn't matter if I'm paying for it myself or my parents are paying for it. It's the fact that those bills, there's more money being spent on those things. So that's, you need to be careful with that. Make sure it's in the context of the question and that you're comparing the two sides you've been given. If they live on their own, they need to spend money to purchase food to eat. So I mean, maybe my parents, maybe I live with my parents, but they make me pay for my own food. You have to compare like with like, as we say, and just make sure that you're actually talking about the extra expense, not who's paying for it. Because what you're indicating here is people who stay at home, their parents pay for everything, and people who move out of home, their parents don't pay, don't help them financially. That's a completely different conversation, really. And thanks for sharing as well, Sandy. Ala, when you are living away for the first time, you might take a lot of wrong decisions to arrange your financial issues, where to live, how to organize your payment for all that you need. Definitely. That's really good. So not just the financial strain isn't just the extra bills that we've all been talking about so far. Allah has a new approach, which is not just the extra bills, but all the mistakes that you'll make for being responsible for spending money in a way you've never had to do before. That's really good. I really like the angle that you're coming at here. That's perfect. It's relevant. It's in the context of the question. Everything you need is there. That's really, really good as well. Great. Vimal, disadvantage would be accommodating of additional expenses such as utility services and rent. Good. Yep. Perfect. So you're now explaining those extra the extra financial burden and the extra financial strain. So that is development. That's much better. Can we include laundry? I would say, yeah, you can definitely include laundry, but what you don't want, Timur, what you don't want is a big list. You don't want to think, what's everything that they have to pay for. So you don't want to go like they have to pay for laundry, they have to pay for electricity, they have to, pay for cooking, and they have to buy cleaning products, and they have to buy whatever other stuff they need for the house, and they have more transport bills because they have they have to get around more, they have to get to and from the place. So of course we could think of many different things that they would have to pay for, but that's not what your paragraph should become. Your paragraph should not just be everything that you can think of. It's developing the idea. So in the way that we had with just naming one or two things, and definitely laundry could be one, but we don't want many of those. For example, students who travel away from their home to study in my country have to work while studying compared to students who reside with their family. You just need to finish it. Yes, but you need who don't. You need to add 2 words. For example, students who travel away from their homes to study in my country have to work while studying compared to students who reside with their family. All right, this is brilliant. Okay, I'm going to look at 2 more comments, and we're going to move on to the next paragraph. Students are more concerned about studies, and extra burden on financial issues will negatively impact their education. This is 2 ideas. No. So you don't have to okay. So this is actually really common that students make this mistake. So they're talking about our main idea. So we're talking about the financial strain that comes with the decision, right? But what you don't want to do is you don't want to talk about the outcome. So you want to explain, how does that happen? So I move out of home to go to university. Now there's more money being spent than if I didn't move out of home. So explain, how did we get from point A to point B? But what you've done is you've gone beyond that, and you're starting to explain, the effects of that, and what happens later. So is it, I have to take out a loan from the bank, or I have to work 2 jobs, or I have to borrow money from family members, or we don't want to get into the effects of having that financial strain. We just want to explain, where did that financial strain come from? How did that happen? Why did that happen? So and this is a very common mistake, and I'm actually glad that you made it so that we can discuss it. Talking about the outcome, talking about the effects, is not explaining an idea. That's really important. Okay, thanks, Naranjan. And Ella, this disadvantage point is not so good, teacher. I mean, there is no financial problem when you study alone, because we chose cheaper university, like what I did. I traveled alone to Palestine, which is cheaper than UAE. Okay, that makes sense. So you're talking about a different context, but you can still explain this main idea perfectly. You can say the person who stayed at home instead of going to another city in their country. So don't let your own experience of traveling abroad to study university influence your answer. This question is not about studying abroad. This is about moving out of home. So I think the fact that you studied abroad is heavily influencing your ideas, but you can't use your own situation as an example for this, because it's not about moving abroad. And I think you're allowing your own personal experience to kind of dictate what you're thinking about. So it might be easier for you to focus more on, two family members, and they were, one of them stayed at home, one of them moved out. So maybe take yourself out of the equation would be easier. Okay, so that is perfect. So that we've lots of good development there. So you know how to develop that. And the next one is, the next disadvantage we had was lack of emotional support. So this would be the start of the second main body paragraph. It would be, another disadvantage is the lack of emotional support that a student has when they move out. So we're nearly at the end of the lesson, but I would like to develop this idea a little bit as well. So, like before, we're going to do the same thing. Can you just tell me how can we develop this idea? So the exact same thing again. How can we develop this same idea? And just quickly, Sandy, that is perfect. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so we have an answer. We have some development here. If you have not posted your comment yet, please continue. I'm going to start giving feedback, but do continue. Write what development you would use, and I will give you feedback as soon as you post. Okay, so Timur, their parents are not available to encourage in their tough times. Definitely. Very simple, very direct, straight to the point. They don't have it because their parents aren't there. Perfect. And that the simplicity of this development is absolutely perfect. Don't make things complicated for yourself. Don't try to think of, very unique, very interesting, very like kind of the type of thing that you would find in a newspaper. This is what you want for a high IELTS score. This is what you want for a high task achievement score in task 2. Just explain it in its most basic, most simple form. Why don't they have emotional support? They're not with their parents. It's absolutely perfect. And that is the fastest way to a high task achievement score. And what I think where a lot of students go wrong is they feel like it's too simple. Of course, the examiner is going to know that already. Like, who wouldn't know that already? Yeah, you're right. Everybody knows this already. That nobody's going to be surprised that you said parents. Everybody was thinking it already. But that's what you need to do. You need to just say it. That's it. Perfect. Good job, Timur. Niranjan, family members had experience in overcoming so many difficult paths, and they can share these among their children, so fulfill their dreams. Yes, but the distinction again, keep in mind we're talking about parents whose children who stayed at home and children who didn't, or young adults who stayed at home and young adults who didn't. So it's not just why the parents have good advice. It's not just why the parents have good advice, it's why one group of these students get the advice and one group of the students don't get the advice. So that's what you need to keep in mind. So not just why do parents have good advice, but why do the people who stay at home have more? And Sandy? When the students live with their family members, those members can support the student emotionally, whereas if they move out, they are more likely to feel a lack of support because they live separately. Absolutely perfect. And a good length as well. Timur, you'll have to keep that in mind, and well, everybody, but you know, Timur said exactly what needed to be said. Sandy's, made this long enough that that's, enough development. Even though she's essentially said the exact same thing, she has said it in a way where it will mean a higher task achievement score, because you have to write 250 words. You can't just write the ideas quickly in like 6 sentences. It needs to be about over 250, but you're aiming for somewhere about 280 words. And with what Sandy's written, and possibly a little bit more onto that, you're going to get that. Ala, although we need to be alone sometimes, no. And let me just talk about this. Don't build up to it. And I think this is kind of it. I think it depends on the way academic writing works in your own language, that you kind of lead into it and you get there eventually. In English, it's just you just say it. There's no dancing around the topic. It's just say exactly what you want to say. So this, and I know you're definitely not the first student or first IELTS candidate I've seen to do this, but it's really important. Don't give me other ideas, or don't kind of lead me into what you're going to say. Just say the actual thing that you need to say. It's really, really important. Okay, so with that, although we need to be alone sometimes, no, that's not going to be part of the question. That's not what we're talking about. That's not going to be part of the paragraph, because that's not what we're talking about. The experience of living alone for a long time with strange people is totally different. Again, you're still not telling me. I need you to tell me, why do they not have emotional support? You need to get straight to that. So far, none of this is relevant. When you had a difficult day, the struggle to live and follow your responsibilities that would be so difficult to continue every day while you don't have someone to care about you. So what, again, you need to get straight into it. You need to go straight for saying why these people don't have emotional support. And that's why when I was looking at Timur's response here earlier on, is why I was so pleased with this, is it's just simple and direct. Too short, absolutely, but it just says exactly what you need to say. Their parents aren't there. They don't have support because they don't have their parents. That the emotional support, people who live at home get emotional support from their parents. People who don't. And that's the essence of what you need to say. Whereas in your response, Ala, you've said everything except that. So it's just a style. It's a style of writing in English that we just get straight to that point, and you'll need to keep that in mind. And definitely a valuable lesson learned from this. And parents always try to comfort kids whenever they are going through hard times. So when when the parents aren't available to help the kids go through it. So I think you have the point, but I think it's just the language here that makes it a bit confusing. So what you're saying again is that their parents aren't there. So it's really vocabulary here. There's a lack of clarity, and this is something to keep in mind as well. Is you don't want to just, okay, you're preparing for the IELTS test. You don't want to just focus on, answer question, answer question, answer question, answer, because this is helping your task achievement score. This is helping your coherence and cohesion. But if vocabulary is an issue for you, it does, like, focusing specifically on IELTS is not going to improve your IELTS score if the thing you need to improve is vocabulary. So do keep that in mind. Focus more on improving probably your accuracy more than your range for now. And that will be the quickest path to getting the scores that you need. Arbin, if a student lives with their family, so spelling of their, they won't suffer from homesickness and all the mental stress he or she suffers from all the extra work. This is a different idea. This is a different main idea. So you're talking about the emotional stress that people move away from home go through. So that would be another disadvantage that I could add to my list, but it's not telling me why they're not getting the emotional support. So it's a different main idea. It's actually not relevant. And if that was your development, it would essentially be the same as writing nothing, because it's your development isn't relevant. That means it isn't helping to develop the main idea you said you talk about. That means you're not pushing your task achievement score up. Niranjan, they are far away from parents and not readily available to get advice in the current fast-moving world. Good. Ella, I like Sandy's answer. Me too. Good. Thanks, Ella. Absolutely. You have to be very direct, very straight with your answers. Ashan, another disadvantage is the lack of emotional support that a student has when they move out. When students stay outside, we don't really say he or she, we usually just say they. It's not wrong, but they is more common. Would have to face problems such as exam stress. In that time, student want some support. Okay, so you're not. So we're not saying, we don't want to say why they need emotional support. We don't want to talk about the benefits of emotional support. We want to talk about why they don't get emotional support. So the question, the main idea that we're looking at, we're saying that there's a lack of emotional support. And once you say there's a lack of emotional support, your explanation has to be, why is there a lack of emotional support? That's the important part. Why or how? Why or how? That's what your development has to be. Why is there a lack of emotional support, or how is there a lack of emotional support? Not why do they need emotional support, or what are the benefits of emotional support? Just why are they not getting it? And that's really important. And a very, very, what you've written, it's all about emotional support, so it feels relevant. But what you've written is probably the main reason why students don't get high task achievement scores, is because they talk about a part of the main idea, but not the main idea. So the main idea is lack of emotional support. They have a disadvantage. Their disadvantage is a lack of emotional support. Why? Why does that happen? Not talk to me about emotional support. Tell me, why do they have a lack of emotional support? So you need to be much, much more strict with the development, the ideas, the explanations that you use, or you're going to stop yourself from getting a higher score. Okay. It is easily understandable that there are some supporting and encouraging on time when they live with your family due to direct exposure and what you're doing is you are trying to show the examiner how good your vocabulary is. Very common problem. By trying to use vocabulary that you think sounds good, or by trying to use vocabulary that you think will get you a higher lexical resource score, you are not communicating clearly. Now, I would hazard a guess. I've been looking at IELTS writing for so long. If I asked you to tell me what you mean, you would explain it perfectly, because I can see the language that you're using, the range that you have. But what you're doing is you're pushing yourself beyond what you're capable of doing, and everything is going to suffer. All task achievement, coherence and cohesion, your vocab scores, they're all going to suffer, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to show the examiner how good your vocabulary is, instead of communicate that idea to the best of your ability. And I very confidently say, if you rewrote that, you would do a much better job by just writing it in the words that you would normally use when you speak and you write in English. I see that, and I'm really sure that you could do a much better job by just tone down the vocabulary. Don't push yourself beyond what you're capable of, and you'll definitely do a better job. Okay, so I'm going to finish up in a minute. Timor, living away from home definitely brings a lot of challenges. In such circumstances, they need their parents. Okay, so it's not why do they... No, it's not why do they need it, it's why they don't have it. So you need to stay on point more. All their parents being away from home, their parents are not available to encourage them. Yep. Encourage wouldn't be the same as emotional support, but you have the main idea there, but that first part isn't actually on topic. It's not actually relevant. Mr. Ryan, please, why we are talking about the disadvantages and not the advantages? Because from the way we wrote the introduction, we said that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, which means we have two disadvantages. And in the next paragraph, which we're not going to have time to write, in the next paragraph, we would include the advantage. So we would talk about an advantage after this. Arben, sir, is this sentence correct? The population of elderly people increased steadily throughout the period, while the population of middle-aged people experienced... Arben, I don't want... Look, I've just... It's not I don't want to help you. It's I've been doing this for a long time, and I know what's going to happen. If I give you grammar feedback, everybody's just going to be sending me sentences about grammar. That the lesson will not be at all about task 2. So I'm going to politely decline your request, because from my experience, I know it will derail this and all future lessons, and it's just going to become me giving grammar feedback, and I don't want that to happen, because it's happened before, and I know from experience. So apologies, I'm not going to give you grammar feedback, but I do have a good reason for it, is because if you get it, everybody else will want it, and the lesson will no longer be about what the lesson is about. Okay, so last week, a student said to me asked me if I had a sample answer, and I didn't. So what I did before today's lesson is I actually wrote one in advance. So I'm going to post that in the comments here. Oh, no, I cannot, because the comments don't allow me to post. So what I'll do is my comment cannot be that long. So the software is stopping me. So what I'll do is I will go to the recording of this lesson, and I will post the sample answer in there later today. So that's it. We've gone a bit over time, but thank you for joining and all your responses. I'm sure you've learned a lot, because every mistake that I talked about, every mistake that we looked at, means that you are more capable of avoiding those mistakes in future. I also have 3 live feedback lessons every week. Some of you here today have joined, Noni and Sandy, possibly some more of you. But if any of the rest of you would like to get in on those lessons, I'll just post the link for you there. So just sign up for those. I have them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday every week. So if this feedback helped you, there's plenty more of that. So just sign up for those. And otherwise, I'll be back next week. Okay, so that's it for today, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye, everyone.